Hello there.
So the Monsterverse Godzilla has always kind of walked the line between protecting humanity and then also being a balance of nature, where when it comes time to fight and protect that balance of nature, he doesn't really care if there's any sort of human casualties. He does whatever he has to ultimately protect the Earth. Now, in the latest Monsterverse film, we saw Godzilla acting a little more aggressive, a little more irritated than usual, and a little more intense than usual. And if early reports are to be believed about the next Monsterverse film, we could potentially see Godzilla going down a little bit more of a darker path, having a more emotional story and having a more intense Godzilla focused story. So in this video, we are going to discuss how Godzilla goes from the balance of nature figure in the recent and past Monsterverse movies to ultimately potentially being the Monsterverse's next big threat. We're discussing it all in this video. If you guys enjoy my content, consider subscribing to my channel and checking it out. I have a bunch more stuff just like this, and let's do it.
The Atomic Fair.
So yeah, as I'm saying, some of the stuff that I was kind of touching on in the intro is the fact that in the latest Godzilla Kong movie, you can see that Godzilla is a little bit more aggressive. He's a little bit more intense than he was in previous movies. And as I also stated in the intro, early reports on the next movie are setting up Godzilla to be a potential antagonist, or at least partial antagonist of the film. Now, I have people in my comment section who hate when I call Godzilla evil or an antagonist. I'm not going to necessarily say Godzilla's going to outright be evil, but there definitely is something that's causing him to become a little bit more irritated with humanity if the story keeps progressing the way that the Godzilla Kong: The New Empire novelization has set it up, as well as the recent reports about the next movie. Then we are set to see Godzilla take the center stage of the story of the next Monsterverse film, and with that comes an intense story arc and development for the character. And I think along with that comes the story where we finally see Godzilla take a stand against humanity for slights against the Titans, with humanity potentially wanting to lock away Titans in the Hollow Earth, with humanity potentially getting fed up with the Titans constantly wrecking city after city. I mean, that is something that I think needs to be addressed in the Monsterverse either way. In Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, there is an insane level of destruction, dude. They almost completely fucking level a city, and it is just wild to watch. Specifically because the Monsterverse has kind of been dehumanizing people a little bit. Now, I don't really, I want to word this the correct way, but what I mean when I say that is that we have definitely seen humanity have less and less perspective in these Monsterverse films. In the first Godzilla film, there are lots of scenes where we see these Titans from humanity's perspective, but in the most recent Monsterverse film, we're kind of sticking strictly to the monster action, ushering in more of that Showa era versus seeing humanity's perspective, seeing the destruction and the death on humanity's side. We're seeing less and less of that in recent Monsterverse films, and it seems like Legendary is setting up to have a big answer for all of this in the coming Godzilla Kong 3 film. Now, there's kind of going to be a civil war between humanity and the Titans if these reports are to be believed, and I think that's something that's even set up heavily in the novelization, with them kind of touching on the idea of the world governments wanting to do something about the Titans. So the things that could potentially cause this is just the natural building tension between humanity and the Titans, and Godzilla taking a stand by ultimately being the king of the Titans, the king of the monsters, the protector of all Titans, as well as the Earth in general. He cares a little bit less about humanity. So if humanity wants to stand up and say, hey, we're going to stop these Titans, whatever we have to do, or something even worse, we're going to create our own Titans. Godzilla hated that in 2021 with Godzilla vs. Kong, where he ultimately spent half the movie just wiping out power plants and stuff like that, trying to stop the building and the ultimate power up of Mechagodzilla, detecting that there was something majorly wrong with what humanity was doing. Now you can see how that could be taken to a very extreme level in the next Monsterverse entry, especially with Godzilla Kong 3 wanting to touch on the possibility of Titan experimentation, especially with the next Monsterverse film wanting to touch on the possibility of Titan experimentation. That's something I've touched on a little bit, the idea that potentially Godzilla Jr. could even be some kind of hybrid Titan that was maybe created by humanity, or at the bare minimum, experimented on by humanity, similar to Godzilla, where they could be trying to kill a Titan or something like that, and then it ultimately ends up growing into Godzilla Jr., or they just ultimately end up experimenting and creating their own version of Godzilla. All of these things are something that would be extremely blasphemous to Godzilla, and he would see that as a huge threat, a huge slight against the Titans, and would go completely apeshit, pun intended there, kind of, on the humans and the world governments for even attempting to do something like that. Godzilla very much gives off the vibe in these Monsterverse movies of protecting the Earth and protecting humanity kind of by extension, but also saying, know your place, don't try to step to me, don't try to step up to the Titans, don't try to threaten us in any way, shape, or form, because I think Godzilla will go to the extremes and completely try to wipe humanity out for even attempting to create mechanized Titans again, or to kill and potentially experiment and like bring back to life other Titans and then add mechanized pieces, something like that, potentially create a Titan like Gigan. All of this stuff is stuff that Godzilla would be very, very upset with. And if you just look back at how Godzilla reacted to Mechagodzilla being created, you can imagine the levels that he will go to in this next Monsterverse film, creating the most dangerous and potentially deadly Godzilla that we have ever seen put to live action, potentially seeing a new form of Godzilla, the most powerful form yet. It seems like we're hearing this in every single movie, but it seems like in this next movie we're gonna get a good mix of that classic Godzilla 2019 form with a mix of the evolved Godzilla, with him retaining some of the power of evolved Godzilla, or at least most of the power probably, and then a lot of the bulk of the original 2019 Godzilla. So combine that with the level of anger we're gonna see in this next Monsterverse film from Godzilla, and you kind of have a recipe for disaster for humanity, where they're gonna have a big problem on their hands with not only the Titans, but with the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. So comment down below, guys, let me know what you think about seeing a very enraged Godzilla in this next Monsterverse movie, and potentially seeing the deadliest and potentially scariest version of Godzilla ever put to live action. Now, this would also be the perfect recipe for them to bring in the biggest and most dangerous threat to the Monsterverse yet, and bring in a potential actual evil version of Godzilla in Zozlahawa, or Space Godzilla coming from space and having a cosmic threat, all while humanity and the Titans are warring with each other. While that is happening, the biggest threat of all comes in when humanity and the Titans are at their weakest and most vulnerable after warring with each other. All of this would be a great setup for the future of the Monsterverse film saga, and then potentially set up a massive event for the coming Monsterverse movies. So comment down below, guys, let me know what you think about Godzilla becoming evil in this next Monsterverse movie, or if you don't want to use the word evil, at least antagonistic or aggressive or angry with humanity, and potentially going to war with the world governments, all while a major threat from either outer space or even deeper in the Hollow Earth or something like that looms on the horizon. Comment down below what you guys think about all this, and for this video, that is all I got. So until the next one, be safe and stay well. Bye-bye.